Which city sports fans have truly suffered the most is the subject of a New York Times report that actually ranked them according to long-running misery. Joining us is Amy Lawrence, host of After Hours with Amy Lawrence on CBS Sports Radio. Amy, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, the top-ranked city is Cleveland.
Oh, Cleveland.
Poor Cleveland.
Poor Cleveland.
Do you think they deserve this honor?
Yes, and actually I think that had this column come out before the news from last night about their all-star point guard breaking his kneecap and now being out for the rest of the finals, probably it would have been Cleveland and then smaller bullet points for everyone else, unfortunately. But we do feel bad for them. It's been a long time since they've won a title. They've got one with the Browns back in the 60s.
Right.
The Cavaliers have never won. LeBron James goes home to help them win, and now it's just the king because his help has all gotten injured.
You know, this seems a little bit like a subjective honor to win. So I'm just curious, how did they actually break it down?
To win. Honor to win when it's actually about their losing.
But like, how did they actually decide? I mean, did they look at data? Did they interview fans? How did they go about making the list?
Sure. No, I think every fan would tell you our city suffers the worst. So that talk about subjective. But in terms of the opportunities to win titles, I think the heartbreak. So the more opportunity you have, but then the moments that you name, like the drive and the fumble, those, when they become nicknames and they become a part of your city's makeup and really gets into your emotions, I think that's when it turns into something that's even more than just, oh, it was a loss.
Right.
So, they looked at the opportunities to win titles and how many pieces of heartbreak have happened, but also how many years it's been since they've even had the chance.
How many heartbreaks have you
we're
had?
We're quantifying heartbreaks, yes.
It's as you point out, I think every fan feels they suffer the most in some strange way. I'm a Knicks fan. We haven't won since 1973. A Mets fan since 1986. We can all point to these dates.
That is true. But I will say this, as fans, we reserve the right to be really defensive about our teams, emotional, we're irrational, we're illogical, but that's part of the love affair. It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, right?
Well, you know what I found interesting? On the list, you have both Oakland and Cleveland. And so somebody is going to come out a winner.
Sure.
After these finals.
And it's neat to see how the nation is kind of picking sides and deciding who do we want to root for. And Oakland is a great story. Steph Curry, the new face of the NBA, and his 2-year-old daughter, who's about the most adorable thing you've ever seen. They haven't won in 40 years, and they've had to deal with the success across the Bay Area and San Francisco, the Giants who've won, the Niners who've been good in recent years. So maybe this is their time.
Were you surprised at any of the cities that made this list?
I was a little bit surprised about Seattle because they just won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were in the Super Bowl again, a half yard away from winning back-to-back titles against the Patriots this year. And the Mariners are great. They've got one of the top pitchers in the country in Felix Hernandez. So I think putting them on the list, though, reminds people that they lost an NBA team not that long ago, a few years ago to Oklahoma City, and they're still bitter about that. I do hear from fans who are still ruining Oklahoma City's thunder.
I was going to say, I'm sure you could have done an informal poll based on all the complaint calls you get.
Yes, I do. And it's very informal, but it happens all the time.
Right.
So I hear from Cleveland fans all the time. I hear from fans in Philadelphia who are bitter and wear that anger like a badge of honor.
Yes.
But then you hear from fans in Buffalo who maybe are more like the lovable loser type. Jim Kelly, he just beat cancer, and they're really rooting for him to be able to get his title finally.
Amy, thank you so much.
Sure, loved being here.